Hey folks, you got to join in today. We got a wonderful show. We got Tracy here. We're going to talk about some unique things about seeds, vegetable seeds. And I guarantee you, you're not going to miss it. Wow, so glad to have you on the show.
Thank you, good to be back.
Folks, I'm going to tell you something. This lady right here is what I say, the cat's meow. When we talk about home gardening seed or seeds in the gardening industry, there's nobody out there that's got more information, that's more highly respected than this lady right here.
Thank you.
So make sure you listen closely because you don't want to miss any of this, I promise you. We're going to talk about some unique things today.
Okay.
Some things that I guarantee you they don't know.
Okay.
Don't you think so?
Maybe.
Okay. But first of all, I want to touch on something right here. This is a collard right here that I've been growing for about a year and a half, something like that right there. Let's see if I can, let's get one up right here. Maybe if we do this right here, we could see it better. It's got a good root system there. It's ready to be planted.
Can I guess?
Sure. Yep.
Is it the one I like so much?
It is.
Top Chop?
Top Chop.
Yay.
That is Top Chop collard. And if you're not familiar with Top Chop collard, I wouldn't either until a couple of years ago. So for the most part, the standard in industry, and I just dropped some of my giveaways. By the way, folks, we got a big giveaway at the end of the show, so don't leave. You got to make sure to be a part of that. This right here has really done well for me. And I think this is one of the new collards that people should be growing in the home garden.
Yep.
It's real similar to Top Bunch. Top Bunch we know is a leader in the collard industry. It's the standard collard grown is Top Bunch. And now we have Top Bunch too.
Yes.
But tell us about Top Chop.
So Top Chop is really, I think, the perfect one for home gardeners. And as you know, there are those varieties that do really well for large commercial growers, those that do well for both, and those that are really ideal for home gardeners. And this is what I think Top Chop is. It doesn't bolt. The leaf, as you can tell right here, it's already starting out. It's a big, wide, old-fashioned leaf, so you're going to get more collard. The ones that are out on the market today that are really for commercial, they're bred to be upright and narrower leaf because they're going to be easy to harvest. Well, I mean, that's
small bunching collards.
Yeah, that's not what a home gardener necessarily needs. And this is why I love this one. Is this one's going to fill up your big black trash bag with cutting one big old plant, you know? So it's done well for you too.
It has done extremely well for me. And the thing about it is we love it for home garden because it's forgiving. It is, if you don't harvest it right away, it's going to be okay. It's going to hold for you. It's not going to bolt, as you say, or bloom. So it's going to be there for you, and for a longer period of time, it's going to have a way longer harvest interval than some of the other varieties. Superior flavor.
The stem is tender.
The stem is tender out there. It is my go-to collard right now. And I grew some of the old heirloom varieties last year. I grew Alabama Blue and I grew Cabochons. Nothing wrong with those. I don't take anything against them. They're different than this right here. This is more a more productive collard than those are. Now some of those have the unique flavor. This is a good standard collard. This collard to me is a little milder than some of the old Fates and things like that. So, which is
good to try to get your young people to eat collards.
Most people that don't like collards, and there's a lot of them out there. I
used to be one of those.
I said you got to try these newer varieties.
Newer varieties, and start to eat them with hot pepper vinegar.
Really?
And then that'll get you over the hump, and then you'll just like the flavor.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Yeah.
So that takes some of the wow out of it. Okay. Yep. Let's move that back out of the way. Ain't that pretty? I love collards.
I love collards.
Yep.
Ooh.
All right, so
gave me an idea. I'm going to have collards for Thanksgiving. Sorry.
All right, so we're talking about, Tracy is with Sakata Seeds. And if you're not familiar with Sakata Seeds, it's one of the premier breeding companies, vegetable breeding companies, and flowers. In the world, folks. I'm not talking the United States, I'm talking in the world. So Tracy is the home garden product manager for the home garden. And she's been around the block a time or two. And she knows all the industry secrets out there. She'd probably have to kill somebody if she told everything she knew. But we're going to talk about the seed selections and how these varieties actually come to marketplace. I thought you guys may find it interesting today of how these varieties actually come to be. And the sad reality is we all do this once a year. We have to sit down and we have to make a cut. The reality is some varieties get cut every year from every seed company out there. I say every seed company. I'm pretty sure everybody has to do a cutting at some point.
Oh, yeah.
And they have to cut varieties and send them back to the wayside, and we always add these new varieties. Well, Tracy is one of the ones that makes those decisions, what new varieties they're going to be out there. So let's get started in how does a new variety come to be?
Oh, that is a long story. And one of the reasons it's a long story is that the just pure time involved. So I always say we're not making widgets, we're not printing t-shirts. This is an expensive endeavor that you have to be extremely patient for, because just to get a good variety to market, you're talking a minimum of 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
10 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
And think about, like, we have to have goals of what the market needs, what the grower wants, what home gardeners are interested in, but you're having to work that far out and hope that by the time you get there, it's still going to be a need.
Yeah.
And it works, yeah. So start from the very beginning.
What do you do? Do you identify what your end goal is when you start?
Yeah, so you're looking at the constantly changing market. You're looking at different pressures that come on, like disease pressures, as you know, are changing with the climate, right? So there are diseases that gardeners are encountering now that they never used to have to worry about before. Mm-hmm. So we're constantly looking at, all across North America, what are the diseases that we're seeing, both, in the soil, from insects, what are the things that are popping up places that never did before? And so are those things a bad enough problem that we're going to have to look at maybe, breeding varieties that are resistant to those so that you'll have better success? Most of the time the answer is yes. So, whatever that happens to be, you got to then start targeting, how am I going to come up with a variety that's going to withstand all those new pressures?
Yeah, we're seeing in the last couple of years, we've seen a couple of things pop up here that we hadn't had before.
Yeah. There's some. It's amazing to me that people say, "Oh, that plant doesn't have that problem." I'm like, you just wait. It's going to have it somewhere, and then we're going to have to deal with it.
Flavor, eating quality.
So flavor is the other one. And really, when you think about it, we're breeding for a bunch of different audiences, right? We're breeding for the home gardener. We're breeding for a small farmer that's going to sell stuff at a farmer's market. We're breeding for the large commercial farmers. So we've got to make sure we have something that fits all of those.
But don't, normally speaking, I say normally because I know these exceptions rule. Normally speaking, it's bred for the large commercial guys, take first priority, because that's where the majority of the volume's at.
Normally speaking, as a whole.
As a whole, because if you can solve their problems, you can solve everybody else's problems as well. So it's normally bred for them. I know there's exceptions to that, but normally bred for them, and the small farmer next, and then the home gardener. We'll kind of get, I'm not going to say the leftovers, but we piggyback off.
No, I mean, honestly, that's kind of how it's always been, but that's where, like, this is all I've ever done. And that, when I started, it was like that 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's how long I've been doing this. But that's why I wanted to do it, because I wanted to say, like, well, these people need good stuff too. Like, we have to pay attention to things like flavor.
Sure.
And so now it's really interesting, I think, because in the market and in the work that we do, it's a really good balance of making sure, you're right, that you're focusing on what those commercial growers need, but then making sure that you also have programs that bring in what a home gardener wants. And that's the fun part.
If you got a little age on you like
we do,
you'll remember back when tomatoes tasted horrible. Back in the 90s, it really went bad because the breeding
was solely
went for storage, shelf life, and all that kind of stuff. And I can remember back when they didn't want a tomato unless they could use a mechanical tomato slicer.
And it was bred to not even be at the green stage, and it was gassed. Gas green.
Yep. We got to go. Thankfully, somebody woke up and seen the difference here and started breeding for flavor. And that's what I tell people all the time. Now, I'm going to pick on a particular variety here, and it may be y'all's, I'm not sure. Amelia. Is that?
No, it's not.
Amelia came out a few years ago, and it was one of the premier varieties that had good disease-resistant package. Horrible flavor. I tell people all the time, and there's still a lot of Amelia growing out there, and if you're a hater on me because of this, it's okay. But I think Amelia ought to be outlawed. I despise Amelia. It's an easy tomato to grow, but it has no flavor whatsoever.
Well, there's no excuse now to have to grow that. That's the thing. Now, there are breeders like us who have specific programs that are going to make sure you have all that disease package that you need. You're going to have size, maturity, yield, everything you need, but you're also going to have flavor. But it has to be a specific breeding focus, and that's where the trials like that we do come in.
Right. So speaking of trials,
Yeah.
so the decision is made, okay, we want to conquer these characteristics
Right.
with this new variety. We know it's going to be a 10-year problem or a 10-year process to get this out there. What is the next process? The next process is actual breeding to get those characteristics.
Yeah, so the next process is that breeder goes and he says, okay, I need a mom and a dad, right? The parents. And I'm going to cross things and see what I get. And this is not, you know, the woo-woo science part. This is traditional breeding where you take something with certain traits, you take something else with certain traits, and you cross them, and you're not really sure what you're going to get. So you do that 100 times, 200 times, first round. Plan them all out there. See what they do. Go through every one.
Make those selections.
What did this one do? What did that one do? Take the notes on every characteristic about it. And this is something that didn't used to necessarily be done in the breeding process, and I'm thinking tomatoes as the example specifically. Taste every one. I
And
have
then
broken
rank it.
out in rashes from tasting tomatoes in our trials because you have to taste every one. You have to rate it on all of its flavor characteristics. And then you have to look at what came out on top combined with what has the best plant habit. You know, what has the best disease resistance? What has the best yield? What has the best maturity date? And find the ones that check all those boxes.
The reality is it doesn't matter what kind of disease package it's got if it doesn't taste
If it
good.
doesn't taste good. That's right.
Yeah.
So that's that. You do that,
Yep.
and you narrow it down, and then you do it again because you can't just look at it once, right? And you can't just look at it at one location. So they choose like the next round, and then in the background here they're starting that phase 1 over again, and then the phase 2 we take and we plant it in different locations. How does it perform all across the U.S.? Narrow it down again. So whereas when if say one project that we're working on with one say indeterminate tomato where the phase 1 started with 120, over the next 4 years you're narrowing that 120 down to the best 5.
To the best 5. Wow.
And then
Now peppers is done basically the same way.
yeah.
Okay.
It's just not so much of a focus on flavor for
Right,
peppers, right?
right,
I mean, there's
right.
not that much of a difference there. But you are looking at things like color, right, and size and yield. Because for peppers, especially for home gardeners, you're not going to put all that work into growing a pepper plant and you get 1 bell pepper, 2
Right,
bell peppers,
right.
which is typical a lot of times.
And for this little side note, for pepper to me, plant size is huge.
Yeah.
Yep.
And protection from sun for when those things come. So there's every crop has different criteria, right? So you go through all these, you narrow the 120 down to 6. Then what? Then that's not anywhere near the end because then you don't know if those 6 are such that they can actually produce a seed crop that's a healthy seed crop and that can be produced in enough volumes that people have seed and it's available. So that whole next phase is more of a production focus phase. Does this cross that we made that has all these great characteristics, can it be produced? Can it, form enough seed?
A stable, productive, viable seed.
Right. In enough quantity to be available.
Now, folks, don't get this confused with genetically modified.
No,
this
no,
has
no.
nothing to do with genetically modified. That's a whole nother discussion there. This is basic breeding. Standard breeding that's been done
old-fashioned
since
breeding.
World War II.
And before.
And before.
And farmers in their backyard did this way before.
Right. It's
I
just
like that
a
meeting,
more
that meeting.
controlled environment there
Yeah.
with more
More inputs and more resources.
and a better educated outcome of what you may get.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's interesting to me now. We talk about trialing. This is for Sakata, but it's also for most other companies too. Although there are small trials done all over the place. We had a pepper trial just down the road the other day from our place the other day.
Yep.
But the majority of the trials is done in 3 places in the United States.
The majority of our trials, yes.
Yes.
To begin with.
Salinas, California, Hall, New York, and Fort Myers, Florida. And the reason for that,
And Woodland, California.
Woodland,
And Washington. So I guess it's 5
Washington
places.
State?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you do the West Coast and we do the East Coast. The thing about the East Coast is, which I do appreciate, you do one in North, you do one in
Yeah.
South.
Yeah.
So we're more we lean more toward Fort Myers because it's more of our type climate. Speaking of, next week, that's where I will be, is in Fort Myers looking at some trials down there. I'm going to spend the week down there. And FYI,
learn how to do it.
Learn how to do it. And FYI, not this week, but next Thursday night, we will treat you to a show with me and Mr. Donnie Glover. We're going to be talking about winter garden, so you got to make sure that you tune into that. But we're not going to do the usual show next week. It's going to be a little bit different because I'm going to be down there with Miss Tracy looking at some trials. We got some interesting things we're looking at down there.
We do. I am going to traipse you through
top secret.
Hundreds of tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, watermelons.
But we got some interesting stuff that if things work out, we're going to have coming in later on. So that's about all we can say. Yeah. All right. So that's interesting. So when we talk about, I guess, disease, peppers and tomatoes probably are the two biggest crops we have the most problem with disease.
Yes.
That we want to breed in for. You know, most people don't know this, but we have a lot of pepper varieties that are tomato spotted wilt virus resistant.
Yes.
That's really good for my area because it's really terrible.
Yeah, because you think about tomatoes, eggplants, pepper, they're all solanaceous crops. So there's all kinds of diseases, that are going to cross over into those crops and be a problem.
So the one that everybody loves grows tomatoes. Tomatoes, most popular garden fruit vegetable is a fruit grown in the garden. Diseases on those is just widespread. Man, it just seems like every time we turn around, we're facing a new disease.
Yeah.
For us, we've always had the tomato spotted wilt virus, but we've seen in the last few years, we've seen an increase in yellow leaf curl.
Yellow leaf curl, yeah. So we have these initials that we have, these acronyms we have to remember for all the diseases as the breeders are breeding this into, and TY will be the one for that. And so it's interesting because there was what we call a disease package that had to be common for every tomato that was bred over the past however many years. And now as we're moving into seeing these diseases in bigger areas and becoming more and more of a problem, it really has, for us, it has to become a standard part of that disease package so that you're never worried about it.
Right.
And that's one of them.
Right.
That's one of them. Tomato brown rugose fruit virus.
Boy, that's a mouthful.
I know. I don't know if I can remember that.
Say that one more time.
Tomato brown rugose fruit virus.
Okay.
I hope I did that right.
Okay.
This is one that I don't know if people have heard about it now. There's like a little buzz about it now because that was one that, you heard, oh, that's not here. Nobody has a problem with that. But then somebody found something somewhere. And so that's one that all the breeders, we're all having to scramble. We have to test now the seed to make sure it's not in the seed once that seed is produced.
But this is so new of a disease that we don't have any known resistance to this.
No, we're all working very fast,
right.
And there are things coming out very soon.
What does the characteristics of it look like?
It's brown. But here's the thing: I've heard people talk, wipe that'll
it's
wipe
like a
out
virus. It just wipes out overnight.
Gone. And so those are the kind of things, those are kind of scary for breeders because when something comes along like that and the whole breeding process is so time consuming, you got to scramble and do things pretty fast. And so those are the kind of serious things that we're trying to look at.
So the Department of Agriculture and their finite wisdom have put a virus testing on all the incoming seeds from everywhere to try to control it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. It's always something, man.
It's always something.
God, by the time we thought we got it conquered, boom, something else hits us. Yeah. And I don't know how much y'all doing on this right here, but nematode resistant.
Nematodes. So that's one that, this is interesting. Nematodes used to be a big problem, and I'm talking like 50 years ago now. And so at that time, that was like a very popular resistance to having tomatoes. All your old-timey tomatoes that have any kind of resistance are going to have root knot nematode resistance. And then for some reason, I don't know, that there were other diseases that came along that were had more financial implications, I guess, for larger growers. And so that became not a top priority. But again, when we're looking at things for the home gardener, like at Sakata, that's still a problem. And if it's harder to find tomatoes that really do well against that, we need to make sure that we're including that. So that's a good example of one where
Can I tell you my philosophy on that?
Yeah.
And I got this from my wife's He's dead and gone, that granddaddy. He told me they used to grow blue lupin. You know what blue lupin is? Used to grow as a cover crop here. He said it was everywhere. He said they come to find out it was a host for root knot nematodes. So they quit growing that, and he's told me they started finding out that crop rotation had a huge effect on controlling the nematodes. Yes. So therefore, I think that they stopped growing some of these hosting cover crops, and they started doing a better job with rotation, and I think they got it somewhat under control there, and it wasn't as near as much as an issue is returning
and
now.
You didn't hear about it, and then people stopped breeding for it.
And now they
but that knowledge is lost.
Gone.
Things start happening.
Right. When's the last time you seen blue lupin?
Oh.
A long time.
Yeah.
Wonderful,
20,
wonderful.
Years?
One of the best soil builders they are.
Yeah.
But it's a host for nematodes. So anyway.
It's interesting.
Look up blue lupin if you're not there, if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's a good one. But yeah, interesting, man. That's wild. It's what all's being done. How about nematodes and peppers? Same thing.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things in peppers that, well, you mentioned, a lot of the crossover tomato diseases, but the peppers that we looked at, or that you looked at out here, they're really looking at trying to get things, I mean, they need the basic disease package, but they're trying to look at things like making sure the peppers are a really large size and they're the pretty 4-lobe shape. Making sure that the plant habit that you talked about has what we call good cover
and yield,
because it's from the sun, so those leaves have to cover those peppers as they're turning from green to whatever color they're going to be, so that it doesn't get sun scald.
One thing that I appreciate about Sakata's breeding program, regardless where it's at, is a focus and emphasis on foliage. I really appreciate that, because that's huge for us in the Deep South. Tomatoes and peppers, those two I can speak to, but the foliage on Sakata's tomatoes, nobody can match it.
Yeah, and the peppers too. I mean, if you look at the habits of our pepper plants, I mean, the fact that we spend so much time, the breeders spend so much time looking at that plant habit, how the leaves cover the fruit, like, it's great to have all the disease resistances and the yield and the fruits coming up. But if they get scalded and, you've just wasted it all that time.
Right.
So the plant habit cover is very important.
There's got to do that. Yeah. All right. New things that's coming from Sakata. Come on, Tracy. Spill the beans here.
Well, let's see. Well, I think the most exciting thing that I have been working on, which is what I was using as an example earlier, are our indeterminate tomato varieties. And again, this has been something.
And we're going to be looking at those next week.
And you are. And I hope we can find you something very special, because there's going to be a lot to choose from. But I think the reason it's so exciting for me, it's because it is so focused on flavor. To the point where, I mean, not only am I out there for every reiteration of the trial that we do and tasting every single one, I've got, several of my colleagues coming in. We've got all kinds of people testing, making notes. We have traits for flavor that we have everybody assign like a 1, 2, through 10 score for. And we do a whole bunch of work tabulating and all. It's really interesting. It's like all this gets dumped into an Excel spreadsheet and we're like staring at numbers, but it's really about the flavor. The other fun thing about it is that we're doing analysis on the chemical makeup of it. So you slice it open, you put a slice of tomato, on this glass board, and you run these tests in the lab that can tell you exactly what the chemical compounds are and the volatile compounds and what makes it up. And when you do that to all the ones that you're over here actually tasting and scoring, then you start comparing the data that you get from both sides, and you're seeing what's making this taste good. And then you can say, well, this parent has high levels of X, so therefore it would probably make a good flavored tomato, so let's be sure to use that one in our next round. So it's really interesting. One
other thing I really like what you do there is you take the leaders in that spectrum there, the competition, might I say. You take the best of the breed out there and you put them up against your new variety.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's with all of our trialing that we do, right? So the breeder has these goals and they have these specs that we're trying to meet. But we also have to look at, well, what's already out there? What's succeeding in the market? What do either home gardeners or commercial growers, where they go to as the one that's working the best? That's our control.
Can we beat that?
Can we beat it? If we can't, why bother?
Right.
Like, let people do that one.
Right.
But those are always our controls. And so that's a very important thing about trialing. So it's a lot like any sort of like medical trials or anything you're doing with trials. You know, it's important to have those controls and those checks set so that you're always trying to go above and beyond,
Right.
not just a me too, we call it.
Right. So that's interesting. Now, that's one thing that differentiates us against, I'm not going to say all, but some of the other seed dealers out there is we really focus on traits of these varieties that we bring to you, because the reality is not all of you are facing the same issues when you grow in your garden. People in South Georgia is going to be facing different issues than somebody in northern North Carolina.
Yeah.
And we've got to know the difference of those varieties. When we tell you which one that we recommend for you to grow in that area, there's got to be a reason behind that. And we spend a lot of our time looking at these trials, talking to people like Tracy, figuring out, okay, these are the ones that's going to work in this particular zone here. I think, Tracy, I don't know if you agree with me on this or not, but I think we as the seed industry have done a disservice in the past, the way we do things, about trying to sell a variety to everybody.
Yes, because again, we're talking generalities, right? But by and large, in generalities, because seed breeding has typically been more towards the larger commercial grower, those things are bred for certain what we call slots. So a slot is a specific time in a specific place. So in general, varieties tend to not be what we call widely adapted, so that you can pretty much grow them everywhere and have success.
Right.
That's another thing we have come back to is, what is the most widely adapted? That's why we test in so many locations. That's why we send it to people like you for you to test.
Right.
Because if I hear what your problems are here and I compare it to what someone else's problems are in upstate New York, then I can see how widely adapted it is.
And it could be different.
And
I mean,
could
it
be
may be it grows well there and it doesn't grow well
Yeah,
here.
and that's okay to have both. So it's
Yep.
important actually. So we're really looking for things that are widely adapted, that just about anybody can have success
Right.
with. But at the same time, it's okay to have things more specific, because like we were talking about earlier, there are certain disease pressures and problems that certain areas have that others don't. Well, they need a solution too.
Sure.
So that has to be.
I think what you're going to see, and we here at Hoss are really working on this hard. I think we're going to do a better job of that in the future. I'm not just talking about us, but I think everybody's going to do a better job in the future of doing, giving people what they need to be successful where they're at. The way it used to be done with seed catalogs, it was just general. You put it out there and it's out there for a year. But I think we, and I challenge our group all the time, we consider ourselves to be customer centric.
Yeah.
We got to do a better job giving the customer what they need to be successful. So that's
an important question to ask. Like I asked this question of one of our product managers last week. We were looking at we come out with new varieties every year, just like you do, right? And we're working on that now of things to present to you. So we're looking at certain things, and it was a squash. If that guy's watching, he's gonna laugh at me, because I texted him. I was like, okay, what's the deal? Like, because I used to be in your position. I was buying from people like Sakata. I was like, what's so special about this?
Yep.
Like, tell me what the deal is. Why would I buy this over all these other ones? Like, you have to convince me first.
sure.
And then all of a sudden, all this information, I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yep.
Like, now I get it.
Yep.
Now I know why
Yep.
a grower
Yep.
should try this.
Yep. Don't tell me. I mean, I got to know why I got to add this one and I got to delete this one.
And
If
you have
can-
to do the same thing.
If you convince me of that, I'm all for it. But otherwise, I'm not interested in it.
Yeah.
And corns is the same way, especially on
That was
corns.
hard. Thank goodness we don't do that.
Yeah. All right, well, that's good stuff. Let's get into some garden spotlight of the week. All right, so we've got Katie and Charles Ellis from Deatsville, Alabama, Zone 8A. Why don't you look at their
I was just
garden?
over there.
Ain't that nice? Little raised beds there. I believe that's some greens there. What does that look like? Green magic broccoli, red cabbage, red jewel, matter of fact, Savoy King.
Listen, all of ours.
Yep.
And you know what's good about those? Those are all the widely adapted ones we're talking about.
Right.
Easy success.
Easy to grow.
Yep.
And that's what we want people to be successful. I want you to look at this picture right here.
Wow.
Let's see what that is. Looks like tomatoes,
Yeah.
doesn't it? All right, let's see what kind of tomatoes they got. Also, they had flash collars. Is that flash? Is that y'all? Okay.
It is.
Yep. I can't tell exactly what that is, but that's got to be tomatoes. Look how big they
It's
are.
huge.
Yep, these are probably, these got to
Healthy.
be indeterminate.
Good cover.
Yeah, good cover. Probably a
For Alabama
Sakata
sun.
variety. Yep. And here's tomatoes for sure, right here. Make sure I get this.
Oh,
over
they've
there.
even got them strung up.
Oh
like that,
yeah,
so that's
those
nice.
are some indeterminates. I can tell.
Yeah.
Nice foliage there.
Yep.
Yep. So there you go.
Good
Thank you,
protection.
Katie and Charles Ellis, Deatsville, Alabama, Zone 8A.
Impressive.
Impressive. Oh yeah. Clusters. Oh, that tomato was Florida 91.
Ah, yeah.
Florida 91. Yep.
Which again is one of those that it's good for the southeast.
Yep.
For the specific problems that you would see down here.
Florida 91. That's a good heat set variety there.
Yeah.
All right, folks. We've got something special. I talked about a
What is this?
giveaway here. So we're toward the end of our garlic season.
Ah.
So we had some garlic back there that got mislabeled. We didn't know exactly what the word, and the whole chaos of things that happens sometimes,
Yes.
okay? So we've got grab bags of garlic. And these garlics got several cloves in there, so that's enough to plant a decent sized little garden. We got 13 bags, folks, of grab bags that we're going to give away today.
12?
13?
12?
13. Unlucky
I guess that
13.
means I don't get one.
So we're going to give these away today. And what you've got to do, in the comment below, you got to put in, I love garlic. And you do that, we'll pick your name, you send us your shipping address, and we're going to send out 13 free grab bags.
I'm jealous.
12, you want one?
That's what
That's what you're trying to get to you. I'll fix you up. We got 12 grab bags, okay. So the first 12 people that put I love garlic in the comments below, we're going to get your information. We're going to send you one of these nice grab bags. And it's way more than enough in there for a regular raised bed.
So when do you plant them?
Now.
Okay.
Yep, plant them now. All right. Onions. You love to grow onions?
No.
No?
No.
We love onions. We grow onions.
My granddad
everywhere.
used to love growing onions.
So we've got short day onion plants this week, and next week we're in the middle of onion shipping out. So this week we shipped Sapelo.
Okay.
Sapelo is a variety that is named after an island off the coast of Georgia.
Oh, really?
Now all these are Vidalia type sweet onions. Also we got Sofire, which is red. When we ship those this week, next week we're going to be shipping Sofire, which is the red one, Sapelo, which is a nice big yellow onion that stores well, and Fedora.
Oh, that's a nice thing.
Fedora.
And all short day because they're for
all
down
short
here.
days, and you plant them in November, you overwinter them, and you harvest them in springtime, and you get those big old sweet
Bugs.
onions. Yep. So if you haven't placed your onion order, get it in there and get them out.
And then you can make what I'm making for Thanksgiving:
Which is
onion casserole
onion casserole.
with Vidalia onions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look it up; it's good.
All right. So the old goat, folks, the old goat figurine is on the set somewhere. On the set somewhere, and you got to find it and put it where you find it in the comments below. And next week we'll do a drawing for this week's winner. And last week's winner is yep, you did. Greg Page. Show everybody right there. Greg is the winner of this week's Old Goat. And look here what Greg is going to get. I'm going to have to get you a pair of these
I
right here.
like those too.
These are the coveted Get Dirty socks.
I like those.
These you can only get by winning the Old Goat.
Okay.
So there's very few people in the United States just walking around wearing
I love it.
the Get Dirty socks right there. Greg, send us your secret information and we'll send you out a nice pair of Get Dirty socks.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we covered everything.
Good.
Man, it was an
Thank
honor
you.
to have you here. I look
Thank
forward to
you.
next week.
Yep. That
Yep.
sounds good.
Thank you for joining us. I knew it'd be a wonderful show today. Great information right there, folks. You may want to rewatch it again so that you don't miss nothing. Information there that you probably can't get anywhere else. Just valuable industry, veteran advice, and information there.
Good.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Now it's
Thank
time
you.
for you to get out there and get dirty.